guys, welcome back to another episode of Art and Recap. I'm your artist Faye, and today we are reading chapter 157 till 161 of Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 157 is called Item of His Dreams. We start off with, Klein being interrogated if he fancies Melissa's friend Elizabeth, and Klein's like, no, guys, what is going on? This is not the time for this. And Benson is like, oh, the two of you would be a good match actually. You're very suitable for each other, but you have to wait for a couple more years until marriage. And, marriage should only be considered 6 to 7 years after you get engaged or something like that. And Klein's like, wait, what? And he's trying to explain to them that he doesn't fancy Elizabeth and that she's too young for him and that he likes a more mature person, right? And then Klein thinks, truthfully, I can accept anyone within a reasonable age gap, just not now. And I was like, anyone, Klein? Anyone? Yeah, that was my brain. And then Melissa's like, well, if that's the case, then we should really settle the issue with your marriage soon, Klein. Because you're going to be 25 soon, and all the ladies that you're after is going to be of age. They're going to either be married or divorced. Or what? Do you want to actually chase after a widow? Is like what Melissa explained to him, because Klein's like, what? He's like so confused. And Benson had to explain to Melissa that the way that she's thinking is very old-fashioned, and that thanks to the magazine he was reading, he explains that a lot of the women in their church that believes in the Evernight goddess, they are girl bosses and they don't get married until their 30s. Like, it's not rare to see ladies in their 30s who are unmarried. And that because they're such girl bosses, they would rather be single than stuck in a marriage that they are not satisfied with. And you know what? Good for you, girly pops. Good for you. I applaud you. And Melissa's like, oh, is that so? Like, Melissa, the way she thinks is very traditional. It's kind of fascinating because of the fact that she is also like an inventor, right? She's studying to be something like an inventor because she did make that weird puppet thingy. And yeah, it's like a little bit confusing with her because, again, she's very traditional, but she's also fast, like a forward thinker in a sense. So Klein decided to throw Benson under the bus and was like, you know who's older than me and also unmarried? Benson. He's the one you should be worried about, Melissa. And Melissa looks at Benson and is like, you're right, Klein. Benson. And Benson's like, whoa, hold up, little sis. I'm actually in the cusp of my career. Like, I need to continue studying so that we can have a brighter future for ourselves. I can't just drop everything and chase after a woman, right? And plus, he also explains that he wants to do this now, forward his career, his education, basically, so that he can provide this woman of his dreams with a better future. And Melissa and Klein was like, wait a second, Benson, is there actually a girl that you fancy? And Benson's like, no, what the fuck, guys? I'm only giving an example here. Honestly, this conversation between the siblings is so familiar to me and also really funny because, first and foremost, I do have a lot of sisters. We are all females in my family except for my stepdad. And they all know that I am not planning to ever get married or have any children. That's like they already accepted that. But my older sister is like in a relationship with a woman, and so my parents, my mother and father, well, mostly my mother, is like putting all her hopes and dreams for grandchildren to her 3 youngest kids. And the 3 youngest kids are actually also very career oriented. And my mom asked them once, hey, when are you guys going to give me grandchildren? And one of my siblings replied to her, was like, well, maybe if you didn't raise us to be career oriented, you'll have a grandchild by now. But we are all kind of studying to be, to earn more money. So yeah, this is why at like, my mom is like 60 something years old now, and she is still waiting for a grandchild. Even though she has like 5 daughters. Okay, we are now at Backlund and we are at private detective called Isengard or Isengard. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think it's Isengard. I don't know. It sounds like something from Lord of the Rings. I feel like I've seen that in Lord of the Rings before. Anyway, we are actually following Forswalls and Theodorecha as they hire this detective basically and inform him of all the things that they know and give hints about how he could, help out with Chilanko, the crazy guy, and they call this guy actually a serial killer and yada yada yada. They had like business talk, and at the end when they left, there is something sussy that happened. This is a really short TLDR. Anyway, the sussy thing that happened is that Isengard took out a bronzy item from his vest pocket, and it was an open paperback book. But the sussy thing is that on the paperback book is a vertical eye, which is sus. And then Isengard mentions that Chilankos has infiltrated Backlund. Like, how did he know that it was Chilankos that they were actually asking him to search up, Because they didn't mention him. Again, because they're trying their best, like Chef Deresha and Force are trying their best to keep it down low because they want the reward money for themselves, right? So they just mentioned that he's a serial killer that they needed to find. Anyway, this is sus. Who is Isengard? We don't know. Aside from the fact that he's like a famous detective. And then we switch POV over to Algar, and Algar is actually drowning a bitch, like some dude, and interrogating him. And he's like, why did Chilankos go to Backlund? And then the stranger was like, well, he's there to complete a commission and that he is trying to become a pirate king. Not the same as Luffy. There are apparently 4 pirate kings in this world, and Chilankos is planning to become the 5th one. And Algar is like, that is very telling but also sus, so what the fuck is going on here, right? And then we switch POVs again and we find out that Klein is trying to summon Derek, and Derek, who was at the practice grounds, he felt the summoning of the fool, and then he rushed over to the bathroom and counted to 1,000 heartbeats. And then that's when Klein summons him, and Klein noticed that there's a new symbol on his chair, and he just knows that Derek is now a bard. Well, he knows because, again, he has spirit vision, actually. So Derek is like, oh, how did he know that? What the hell? But he's like, oh, thank you so much for your assistance. This is all because of you, Mr. Fool, basically, right? So then he gestured for Derek to sit down, and then Audrey and Algar then appeared, and that's how the next Tart Club gathering commenced. Chapter 158 is called Preparedness Averts Peril. So in this chapter, Klein is actually admiring Miss Justice a little bit for her cheerfulness, and he's like, I wish I was as cheerful as her. But then he remembers that she's filthy rich, and then was like, that's probably not ever going to happen. And then we find out that Derek actually already has the telepathist potion, and then he is planning to, give it to Audrey. Before that, Klein actually instructs him on how to write, like summon the piece of paper and whatever, and write down the potion formula so that he can give it to Audrey later on. So he does just that, and then Audrey looks at the potion and reads the formula and was like, I guess I am still a noob after all because I don't recognize any of these ingredients, is what she's thinking. But then Klein wraps his fingers on his chair and she notices it and looks up over to him, a little bit confused. And at the corner of her eyes, she sees the paper that she's holding with the formula. It changes a little bit, and next to it are like the names of the modern version of the potion, right? And she's like, oh, wait a second, I actually do know all of this. And Klein was only able to do that because he is actually, first and foremost, he has the telepathist potion ingredient already, right, for Audrey. Second is that he is actually also researching the different names for this moment exactly, right? So he was prepared, basically. So Audrey then compliments him and says, "Thank you, Mr. Fool, you're very knowledgeable." And you know what? Alger was like a little bit aghast that she complimented him like that. Like, knowledgeable? Is that really how you would describe a god? Is like what he's thinking. And he's like, his existence, the fool's existence alone, is equivalent to knowledge itself to a certain extent. And when I was reading that, I was like, holy glaze, Alger, calm down. Well, again, I am thinking, is Alger going to be Klein's most devoted disciple slash member? Or is he going to be someone who's going to be betrayed by Alger? He's just giving, I don't know, it's giving Judas, basically. Anyway, Audrey gives over Klein the page of Emperor Roselle's diary and also said that she would like to give him, like his blessed, another 300 pounds as an extra because she thinks that the information that she got and also the direct translation from Mr. Fool, it deserves a little bit extra, right? And also she kind of feels bad that it's only 300 because to her it's actually worth more, but you know. So Klein is actually trying his hardest not to show his excitement as he said, okay, here is my blessed's contact information. Like, not the contact information, but like the bank information. And we actually find out that the bank here has a two-factor verification process too. First, they have, or more like three-factor. First, they also have like the password, which Klein has. And then there's like a signature and thumbprint verification if you ask the bank to have it, right? But Klein is like, he's like, I'm all right with just the password. I don't need to do those two. And also I was thinking, those two, the thumbprint verification in particular, I think that's a little bit super advanced, no? Like, how are they going to compare the thumbprint that they have of that one person and this one person that wants to access the bank? Like, are they going to be like looking at it with magnifying glass? Like, what's going on here? So anyway, Klein also explains to us, the readers, why he actually only needed the password. Because the password that he used is like Ancient Hermes, and that it's basically his summoning, right? Like, the fool that doesn't belong to this era, yada yada yada. That's basically his password. And he, in his mind, it's very logical actually, he says that reciting his name would actually signal him that there's someone trying to access his bank account, which is super smart actually. I really appreciate that. Very, very smart of you, Klein. And he's like, the downside to this is that it will expose the fool, but at the same time, like, someone would just be thinking maybe this person is just crazy and writing a poem. I don't know. So then Audrey looks at the bank, and while she's looking at it, she's wondering if the blessed of Mr. Fool is very powerful. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. So then Audrey tries her best to memorize the bank information, and Klein is like, wait a second, you can actually do it a certain way, in an easier way. Basically, he explains to her how she can, do the same thing that he does basically whenever he's drawing a portrait of some random person that he saw. And Audrey was like, wait a second, I can do that, then why did I have to memorize the formula earlier? Right? Well, that's because, Audrey, my dear, Klein didn't know that he could do that either until, recently. So then Klein turns over to Derek and is like, okay, what do you want for compensation for all of this? And Derek is like, well, I don't really need anything right now, but I am going to be digesting the Bard potion very soon, which is really quick. Don't you guys think that's like, what? It's been like 1 or 2 weeks, I think, since he had the Bard potion, right? So he's like, I'm gonna be digesting the Bard potion very soon. So I might actually need the corresponding sequence 8 formula for this, or the necessary ingredients. And Klein was thinking, wait a second. He said that he's almost done digesting. That means that the City of Silver knows about the acting method. And then he was also thinking, like, how is it that the highest sequence at the City of Silver is only at sequence 4. Like, are they limited by ingredients? Is Klein's thought process. So Audrey also picked up on this little slip up from the sun, which is not really that much of a slip up for Derek, because in his mind the information he gave is like super normal, because apparently digestion of potions is being taught to them at school in the Silver City. So it's like, it's basic knowledge, right? Anyway, after they got over their shock, Algar asked Derek if there's any, advice he could give them for this acting method thingy, and Derek is like, well, the key point that we have in our classes is that for the acting method is that you need to remember that you're only acting. You're not actually that person, And Klein was thinking, oh, you just shared such an important information by accident. But again, considering the fact that Derek is, from the City of Silver, and all this knowledge that he knows is actually common knowledge, he doesn't really think it's important, right? So he's not going to know either way if it's important or not to Algar, Audrey, and Klein. Chapter 159 is called Bestowment and Sacrifice. Klein finally has a chance to start reading Roselle's diary that he got from Audrey. In this diary entry, it starts at around August, the 2nd of August, and it says here, history sure is something that can be manipulated easily. And when I read that, I was like, Roselle, what do you mean? I know history is written by the victors and all that shit, but this is very suspicious. Either he's rewriting history himself, or he found out something that he realized is not historically accurate. Very questionable stuff, Roselle. On the 5th of August, he witnessed a high sequence Beyonder in action, and he tells us that it's actually pretty scary, and that he totally understands why people are likening them to deities or demigods. But he would actually also describe them more as legendary beings. On the 6th of August, he starts questioning the churches. He's wondering, why is it that the 7 major churches, that they adopted this thing where they are willing to give the low sequence potions to anyone who asked, right? Kind of like how Klein just asked if he can become a Beyonder, and Captain Doon's like, okay, which Beyonder you want to be, right? So he finds that a little bit odd and thinks it's very illogical, because why is it not that the low sequence parts are the ones that they hide the most, right? Because then anybody can be a Beyonder, but at the same time they're hiding the fact that Beyonders exist. That's just weird. That's illogical. And I actually agree with him on this part. It's very, very strange. I also wondered about this before at the Donghua. When we were watching the Donghua, I was surprised that they just gave Klein the potion already. Because again, he also said that the church are willing to give the low-level sequence potions completely, not even the formula, right? So, sus. Very, very sus. And then on the 9th of August, he writes that he actually started the Industrial Revolution of this world, and that he worries that it will become the hotbed for the descent of an evil being. And Klein's like, wait, what conditions are necessary? What's going on? Roselle, what the fuck are you talking about this evil god? Klein starts to ponder about all of this and was thinking, should I be divining about the evil god? Like, I can technically ask the spirits or whatever about the conditions necessary for the evil god to descend upon this world, but at the same time, I don't want that evil god to put his attention on me. He's like, I learned my lesson with the sun god, so I don't want to do this, especially since it's an evil god, right? So I don't want that. I'm not gonna risk it. So then he questions the arrangement of the churches, because that's what Roselle mentioned, and he's like, I am also wondering about that. It's very, very sus, but I can't really do anything about it. But I can have But I can just wait for Dali to, give me hints about all this stuff once she get promoted into an archbishop or a really high-ranking deacon. Klein now allows the group to talk among themselves, and they talk about Chilancos, and Algar is trying his best to tempt Klein to send his blessed over to Backland, and Klein actually knows what he's planning to do. Like, he knows that Algar wants him to go to Backland and, step in himself, but he's like, I can't do that, but I can't do that because I myself am a low level beyonder. I can't handle Chilancos by myself. And also, he can't leave Tingen because he's part of the Nighthawks, right? But then he was also thinking, I do know two powerful beyonders that might be able to help, namely Dali and Mr. Azik. In Dali's case, he has to be a little bit more secretive in telling her what he knows. And as for Mr. Azik, he actually is, like, how do I say this? He's saying that if he ever tells Mr. Azik about this, he has to come clean about the fool and all of that stuff. And he's like, nope, I don't want to do that. At least not yet, right? Anyway, once the Tarot Club activities ends, Klein actually ponders to himself how he could deliver the ingredients to the sun. And he's like, well, there's actually like confidential information of the Nighthawks that I found out that deities can bestow something towards the person praying to them, right? Like a blessed, I don't know, sword or something, kind of like magical blessing thing, sacrifices, blah 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 blah. He was talking about a lot of stuff basically. So he's like, maybe I can do something like that too, but I don't know if I can do it right now. Maybe once I'm a clown I can do that, and then I can easily send over things to my Tarot Club members, is basically what he's thinking. But first and foremost, before anything happens, he needs to advance to the clown, to become a clown, join the circus, and also create the flaring sun charms. Chapter 160 is called Seizing the Opportunity, or Seizing the Opportunity. Anyway, it's a Tuesday morning. Klein is with his teammates, Leonard, Kenley, and Royale, and they are playing cards in the break room. And you know what? These people are always playing cards in the break room. Somebody buy them a board game or something. Why is it always cards? Aren't they getting bored with it? Anyway, Captain Dunes comes in and tells them, hey, there's a situation in Morristown. Leonard, you go deal with it. So upon hearing that it's in Morristown, Klein jumps up and was like, Captain, I think I need to go with Leonard into this town. He needs my help. And Leonard is like, what is going on? Why does this guy want to join me on this mission? That sounds super simple, because when Captain described the mission, it was just, simple hauntings. And Klein actually tries his best to convince Captain Dunes to join him, and Captain only relented when he said that Leonard might need help and that those spirits might need, what's it called? A ritualistic magic to free them, basically. So he's saying that, and Captain's like, okay, fine. You win, you can go with Leonard, okay? So Klein is, of course, super happy with that, but he also needs the artifact, the sealed artifact. So he's like, Captain, what if there's a powerful wraith behind all of this? We might actually need backup first and foremost, because they would need 2 to 3 hours to get to Morristown. So it will be best if there's actually 3 Beyonders there. And since there's 3 Beyonders, it would be good to bring along the sealed artifact, right? Just for safety measures. And Captain's like, are you sure? This sounds a little bit overkill. And you know what? Leonard actually made a little bit fun of Klein. He's like, this is exactly your style. Careful, cautious, taking no risk. And Klein's like, is this guy implying I'm a coward? But he didn't take the bait. He is still trying to convince Captain. But in the end, Captain was like, why not? Sure, go ahead, take the sealed artifact. And then they are actually waiting for Kenley. Oh yeah, Kenley is the one going with them. This is a little bit different from what we have in the Donghua, actually, because in the Donghua it was, they didn't go to Morristown, they went to the harbor, I guess, and Old Neil was with them. In this chapter, Old Neil was not with them, actually. It's just Kenley, Leonard, While Leonard and Klein are waiting for Kenley, Leonard turns over to Klein and is like, I think you'd better give up on any unrealistic dreams. Klein is super confused and was just like, what? Excuse me? And Leonard elaborates with, even during a mission, it will be impossible for you to discover my secret and understand my uniqueness. And Klein is like, bro, are you hearing yourself? Are you that self-centered? What? And he was like, did this guy think that I applied for this mission so that I can spy on him? What the fuck? Klein then replies to Leonard, how can you be so sure that my uniqueness won't help to reveal your secret? And Leonard, his expression grew grave, but then he smiled and said, it will, huh? I shall wait for you to discover it then. And Loki, when I was reading this whole conversation between those two, I was like, whoa, why is it Loki so flirty? I don't know why, but it's giving flirtatious vibes, guys. I can imagine these two just standing there, staring each other down, and I can imagine Kenley walking over to them with the sealed artifact and going, am I disturbing something? Because I can just picture those two just staring intently at each other as they assessed if the other's uniqueness will reveal their secrets and whatnot. It's just so crazy. Oh my god, these two. So they head over to Morristown, with Klein being the passenger princess because he can't drive a carriage yet. And they stopped by the church and was greeted by a priest. And Leonard was like, hello, priest. Don't worry, we're professionals. Look, we have holy water, silver daggers, silver daggers, dark sacred emblems, and also garlic. And there was actually a crowd of people waiting for them. And they were like, oh, they bought garlic. They sound very professional. Now our town is going to be safe. Anyway, they head off into the church and are going to have lunch first before they actually deal with the supernatural stuff. Chapter 161, Inverted Mausoleum. So, after their lunch, they were discussing on where to go first, right? And Leonard actually suggests that they go to this old man first, and Kenley's like, why? Leonard explains that it's because the old man lives the closest to the church, and Klein asks him how he knew that because it wasn't in the files. Leonard then tells him that, hey, remember when I went to the bathroom during our lunch? Well, I actually met up with a trainee priest there and asked them questions, and they told me that the old man lives nearby and that the old man's name is actually Noah, which, of course, is also my OC's name. Noah von Winter is his name, my OC, my beloved. He's the blonde guy at the corner with green eyes and the long earring. Yeah, that's my dear. You guys will see more of him in the future as I work on my webcomic. Anyway, they arrive to Old Man Noah's house and they knock, and Old Man Noah's like, oh, who are you guys? And they explain that they're from the church. They're, the exorcist with quotation marks here. They're the professionals. And he's like, oh, okay, that's great. Please come in. And once they come in, Leonard points out that there is really a spirit here and it's very weak. And we find out that Midnight Poets actually was a job with high spiritual sensitivity. And I was like, that's very, very suspicious that it's being pointed out right now. Anyway, a crowd of people started gathering around the house and looking through Old Man Noah's house, the windows and stuff like that. And Leonard is like, we have to prepare the blessings, this and that, and vanish the impure being so that it won't trouble you guys anymore. And then he looks at Klein for him to perform the purification ritual. Oh my god, why was that difficult to pronounce? And Klein was thinking, why me? And Klein looks at him back with like this look on his face like, why me? And Klein was wondering if Leonard actually understood what he meant, because again, they are just talking with each other through their faces alone. And clearly, Leonard actually understood, and he tells Klein that, hey, you're the expert in rituals, and he said it softly, right? And it was like such a playful thing because that's also what Klein told to Captain Dunes so that he can join Leonard in his mission. And Klein's like, damn, okay, I can't argue with this one. And you know what? If I were Kenley and I see these two just conversing with their looks alone, I will feel like the third wheel. Like, come on guys, use your words. I'm here too. So then Klein performs for the crowd, and after a while they're like, oh, this feels amazing, I can feel the warmth, yada yada yada, it's definitely working. And then they were satisfied and they left and followed the priest back to the church like good little sheeples. And even the owner, Noah, had to leave with them because now it's just the 3 Nighthawks in the house. So Leonard tells Klein to perform a divination on the cause of the incident, and Klein's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So then he performs the divination and he sees the inverted mausoleum, and he tells that to Leonard, and Leonard is like, oh, that inverted mausoleum sounds like it's from the southern continent, because Klein tells him all of this about the inverted mausoleum because he's like it's not that important, right? He doesn't think it's like relevant or will out Mr. Asik. That's why he tells Leonard this. And Leonard's like, yeah, definitely from the southern continent. And he explains that it's like a mausoleum that only the so-called descendants of death that can be erected by themselves or something like that. And Klein was thinking, that's odd. Could it be possible that Mr. Asik is a descendant of death? Or maybe death actually, he made a deal with death. That's why he's kind of immortal, kind of, but not really, right? So Klein was like theorizing all of that. And also we find out that death was a malevolent god, which I think this is something that I find fascinating, kind of, because it seems to me that death is always considered as an evil god. But to me, I think death is a very peaceful god, It's not his fault that people are dying. It's just a fact of nature, right? In my story, in my world, I don't view death as an evil god, but more of a peaceful one, actually. Because you cannot have life without death, is my belief, right? And I want to put that in my story. I know, I should stop talking about my story because it's gonna border on spoiler territory. I don't wanna do that. Anyway, he also says that death fell at the hands of the 7 gods, and that the southern continent actually still believes in death, which is fascinating to me still. Anyway, it's now time for them to take their shifts guarding the sealed artifact, and for Klein to do his thing and create those emblems that he's been after for a while now. Leonard suggested that they have 2 people guard the sealed artifact while 1 rests, and Klein's like, shit, this guy. Because Leonard is of course trying to joke about that because again, Klein is so cautious, so he's suggesting that, and Klein was like, you know what? No. If you want that, we have to calculate the most logical rotation. And then he gave like a lot of examples to overwhelm Leonard about all of this info. And Leonard's like, wait. Okay, you win. We are just going to have 1 person look at it at a time. Okay. Klein was super relieved that Leonard agreed with him because he's like, if this guy didn't agree with me, I will have to talk about him and make a deal about, keeping stuff a secret and stuff like that. And yeah, he's just happy that the problem is solved now. And that is how the chapter ends and how this video will end. Anyways, what did you guys think of this chapter? I am actually very, very happy with it, especially because there's a lot of Leonard going on, because you guys know I love that guy. And again, I am going to point out Leonard is super bossy whenever they're in a team together. I'm just like, ooh, boss babe. A little bit about the artwork I'm working on. Yes, that is indeed lindling and nice. And no, I don't necessarily ship the two. Like, I can see it happening. I see a lot of people enjoying this ship. I'm drawing this because I got approached by someone on Tumblr. They asked me if I wanted to participate in this calendar that they're making, a Nicest calendar, which is the ship name for Nice and Lindling. And I was like, you know what? I have nothing better to do, so why not? They asked me about that like last year actually, but then I kind of forgot about it because then I got super busy afterwards. So I was like, oh shit. So then January 1st, I think. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about this. So I rushed to make it because I have the March artwork. So I was like, okay, let's finish this real quick. And I am actually happy that I managed to complete it, right? So yeah, there's that. Before I go, please leave a like, subscribe, and a comment. It helps my channel out a lot. My commissions are open and my Vision link is down in the description below. Check out my story Dreaming of Aurora if you have the time. And finally, thanks to my patrons Robek, Vanarik, and Jvoljevolitska for the support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!